There's a whole lot that I could explain all to you, and I don't want to bore everyone, but the general gist of things is that you pay a fee each month to a kind of nationalized kind of system of healthcare, and if you've paid that, then when you go to the doctor, you are only responsible for 1/3 of the bill, and the rest is covered for you through this system. There's different kinds of branches of the system depending on where you work, what kind of job you have, if you're self-employed, but in the end the money all winds up in the same place, and they're the people that are then distribute that money to everybody to pay the bills. And so that's kind of a unique way of covering things. You don't see kind of like a flat rate for a nurse visit or a flat rate for certain kinds of medicines. There's not a prescription like we see with lots of HMOs in the States, for example. That's not a prescription rate. It's a little different in that sense here. You pay that the money for the health care to be kind of part of that, and that's just sort of a no-brainer that everybody pays for that. If you have a job, that's usually automatically deducted from your paycheck. In my case with my family, my husband's self-employed, and so he pays monthly, and what we're assigned to pay changes depending on our taxes from the previous year. So if you made a lot of money, then you pay more. If you didn't make that much money, you pay less. Those kinds of things are all factored into how much money you contribute. And so it's a real kind of group kind of effort to kind of pay for things. And then the strange thing though is that you still choose a privately run and operated doctor. There's not these giant hospitals or HMOs where everybody works and you have to go there. A lot more often it's these little tiny kind of clinics that you see everywhere. Now there are big hospitals. They're big city town hospitals, and that's kind of like if you've got no other choice then you go there kind of thing. But the clinics are very specific. They handle different kinds and branches of medicine. So my daughters, they go to see a pediatrician, and that's what he does. He runs his office out of his home and sees patients, and they're all very local, and it's just him, and his wife is a nurse, and then they have some other staff. So it's very small and very kind of family oriented, and feels really kind of nice that way, not a big system. When I had a cold, I had an ear infection, so then I go to a doctor who is just an ear, nose, and throat guy, and that's it. And when I go see him, he's just the only doctor again, and he has a separate office that I go to there. And then when I have allergy and asthma sometimes, and so the doctor I go to see for that, he runs his own kind of open clinic that handles lots of basic kind of problems. And I think he has a couple other doctors. His office has grown significantly, but he has a couple of extra doctors I think that work with him and specialize in certain kinds of treatment. But that's actually where I went when I caught pneumonia, which was so fun. I went to America, came back, worked myself like crazy when I was there, caught something horrific on the plane like you always do. We came back, my husband had the same thing, but he just had this terrible flu. Mine spiraled out of control, and I wound up catching pneumonia, and I had to be taken to the hospital right away and given an IV, and they told me I had to be hospitalized right away. But not the hospital, I shouldn't say hospital, it was just still this small doctor's clinic. But he also, in that place, the second floor of the whole building are short stay patient rooms, and mostly elderly people. So I was like the only young person there, and the only white girl, of course, so that was a little awkward. And it was really when I hadn't been here very long, so I didn't really know a whole lot of Japanese, and it was a tough 10 days to stay there and not be able to do anything. I couldn't, leave. I couldn't eat normal food. It was tricky to be in that situation, but so that kind of a thing, but we didn't really have to pay that much for that time, really, even though I was there. So, and then after you go see the doctor, say for example you need medicine, the pharmacists are all run and operated out of a separate building. Generally they try to, of course, set up shop nearby some clinics, so you usually don't have to drive or walk very far to get to one, but the doctor will write up your prescription and then you take it to that place to get it filled. And recently there's been a great influx of generic brand medicines now coming into Japan, so you get the option of choosing if you want to get a generic version or not. So that's kind of cool. And I don't know, I'd say the pricing, you know, is pretty decent. You know, I haven't really been on any medication where I have to take it every single day kind of things. It's always been short term because we have a cold or something like that. So I wouldn't really be able to be a good judge as to, for example, if you had to take monthly allergy medication, you know, and you're used to paying just a flat rate of, you know, $15 for your meds in your HMO, then maybe in Japan that's going to be a little more expensive. But, so that's kind of cool. The other thing too is all the immunizations for children as they're growing up. Those are all free if they are the ones that are required by law. Now, chickenpox, for example, is not required by law in Japan, and so when I wanted my daughter to get the chickenpox immunization, we had to pay about $80 for it. So, that's kind of a different sort of thing, you know, and the influenza shot is not free either. You have to pay. They split up kids' shots into 2 parts, and each time we go, it's like $30 or something. So, you know, that's one of the things you do have to pay for. You know, most of the time they do really push for immunizations, but they don't want you to get a lot for your kids. There's still that thinking that, you know, you shouldn't force yourself to do it if you don't absolutely have to. So that part can be a little different if you've been here and then you have to go to the States and they're like, no, like that happened to my daughter. She was like 4 years old when we went to DC for a while, and she was getting into preschool, and we had this terrible day at the doctor where they told us she needed 4 shots all on the same day because she was behind compared to what we were at in Japan. So that can be terrifying for a little 4-year-old kid. But so those are just some really simple basic kind of differences, I think. Like I said, the doctors are all very privately run and really friendly, and you know, you kind of get to know them very well. Still long wait times. That happens anywhere in the world, right? You show up even if you have an appointment and you still wait forever. Dentists are the same way too. They're all usually privately run out of their homes kind of things. The amazing thing is they are insanely cheap. I have no understanding of why dentists are so inexpensive here. I go to get my teeth cleaned. It costs me like $10. Seriously, I'm not lying. You know, I've gone when my daughter was getting a tooth filled, a cavity filled, and I've paid like $5, $3 for the visit, which is just amazing. But they do spread things out. They don't like doing things fast. And so like when my daughter had her tooth filled, they did the first part where they just checked everything out and cleaned the area, and then we had to come back in a week, and then they went ahead and they did all the, you know, medication, and they filled it with some clay, and then we came back the next week, and then they finally did the filling. So big time, you know, you have to take all your time out of your day to do this. And there are some special places that do it all at once, and you know, they make a big deal about it, and you can spend the night if it's so traumatic for your teeth. But generally, they don't, you know, do everything all at once for you. So that took a little getting used to, but I don't mind because it's so inexpensive. So, of course, later, if you're talking braces, then prices zoom back up to about the same as they are in the States. But for general dental health care, not that expensive. Really awesome. And then finally, I suppose, probably in terms of having kids, that's the most awesome thing about living in Japan. I've had both my daughters here. I purposefully told my husband when we were living in DC that if we didn't have any plans of returning to Japan before we had our second kid, we'd just come back just for the 9 months, just so that I could be here to do it, because it's so awesome. In Japan, you usually stay in a special, there's these clinics, again, that are OBGYN clinics, and they have special long stay rooms for people to stay at. You can go and have a baby at the big hospital place, and they'll put you in a room with 3 or 4 other people, but you still have to stay. If it's a normal, natural birth, then you still have to stay 3 or 4 days. If you have a cesarean, you have to stay like 10 days, 7 to 10 days. So, you know, it's not a hi, bye, get out of here kind of thing. They really make you take your time to kind of get into the sync of things. And the place I stayed at is just like a 5-star hotel. It's so freaking nice. It's like you go there, and both times, the first time with my first daughter, I had a cesarean because my water broke, and then nothing happened for the next 2 days. So we were like, well, this is never going to happen. Okay. So finally, I tried to induce labor. That still didn't change anything. So finally, we had to have a cesarean. But because of that, I stayed there. We did all that. And then they take care of you the whole time. They have the place, if you don't want to have your child with you and you need sleep, the nurses will take care of the baby. If you want to have the baby in your room, you can have the baby in your room. It's a private room. Beautiful, nice little kind of hotel scene. You know, the nurses are on call any second, any moment. You need new diapers, new clothes. They're there. 2 seconds, give you everything you need. And then they serve you these beautiful meals. They have 3 meals throughout the day, 2 times for snack, and they're all like elaborately designed and calculated for nutrition and also just being yummy. And they treat the husband and wife to a you know, like really nice wine kind of meal towards the end of your stay, so that you can't really bathe that much when you're there. They do it like an day kind of washing your hair for you, and they massage your face and all this stuff. It's like such a beautiful resort kind of lifestyle. It was awesome. So I was like literally crying my eyes out because I didn't want to say goodbye to everybody when I left because they were so helpful. So plus, you do that. Of course, that costs a lot of money. 10 days, that's a long time to be in a hospital. But the amazing thing, oh, my birds are so loud again today. Excuse the birds. But the amazing thing is that the government right now has this promotion, if you will, going on that if you have a baby, they give you about $3,000 for having a baby. And it's just an encouragement because if you know anything, if you've seen the news, Japan's population is decreasing every year. And the number of old people is just massive. So they're trying really hard to encourage people to have kids. And one great way is to give you a lot of money if you have one. So they give you money for having a baby. It's like sweet. So I wound up paying $0 for having my daughter, you know, and plus I'm also in an extra health insurance plan that I pay for on the side. That gave me bonus money for being in the hospital, so we wound up on the plus side for having a baby. Who gets paid to have a baby is awesome. So we had that, and then on top of that, the city we live in, they give us about $50 a month for having a kid. Even all the way, my daughter, who's in 3rd grade, we still get that every month for them to help just cover bills. And so that's kind of cool. And I don't know how long that's going to last. It keeps changing depending on the political party who's in office and, you know, the general fact that Japan doesn't have that money, so maybe they shouldn't be giving it away. I don't know. But it's kind of a general introduction to how, a kind of random introduction to the healthcare system in Japan.